Julian Mercer knew his marriage was in trouble when his wife could remember the exact number of words he had spoken that morning, but could not say whether she still loved him. It was 2:17 in the morning when Evelyn Thorne appeared inside his photography studio. She wore a black coat over her business suit. Rain glistened in her dark hair. Her face carried the same calm, unreadable expression that had earned her the nickname Ice Queen of Thorne Dynamics. Julian stood beside an open suitcase. He had moved out of their penthouse 6 hours earlier. Evelyn looked at the suitcase, then at the folding bed near the window. "You said 43 words to me today," she said. "Yesterday, you said 112. Last Monday, you said 186. Julian stared at her. "You count my words?" "Only when something is wrong. You have records going back to last Monday." "Something has been wrong since last Monday." Her tone remained perfectly controlled, but one hand gripped the strap of her bag so tightly that her knuckles had turned white. Julian placed a document on the table between them. Across the top were 3 words: 30-day separation agreement. Evelyn read the title. For the first time in years, genuine emotion cracked her cold mask. "No, it is not a request for permission. You are my husband, and you are my wife. But I have felt single for 3 years. Evelyn took one step toward him. "Who told you to leave me?" "Nobody." "Was it Milo?" "Why would you immediately suspect Milo?" "Because his search history includes 7 articles titled, 'How to Escape a Powerful Woman Without Dying.'" Julian slowly lowered the separation agreement. "How do you know his search history?" Evelyn realized she had said too much. The silence between them became very different. Julian thought about the security car that always appeared when he worked late, the clients who mysteriously stopped flirting after meeting him, and the new locks that had been installed at this studio without his approval. He looked at his cold, elegant wife and felt a chill move down his back. "Evelyn," he said carefully, "what exactly have you been doing behind my back?" She did not answer. Instead, she closed the studio door, turned the deadbolt, and placed the key inside her coat. "First," she said, "you are going to explain why you believe our marriage is ending. Then I will show you everything. After that, if you still want 30 days away from me, I will give you 30 days. And the key? The neighborhood is unsafe after midnight. Unlock the door." Evelyn held his gaze for a long moment. Then she returned the key and stepped away. That small decision was the only reason Julian agreed to hear her secret. 4 years earlier, nobody would have described Evelyn Thorne as cold around Julian. They met at Westbridge University when Julian was a photography student working 3 jobs, and Evelyn was an economics major pretending she did not belong to one of the wealthiest families in the country. Most students knew exactly who she was. They either avoided her or tried to become useful to her. Julian did neither. Their first conversation began when Evelyn stood alone outside the arts building during a thunderstorm. A luxury car was supposed to collect her, but the driver was late. She had no umbrella. Julian walked past, noticed her, and held his umbrella over both of them. "My bus stop is that way," she said. "Mine too. You live in the opposite direction." "Then I am experiencing a temporary interest in public transportation." She looked at him as though kindness without strategy made him suspicious. At the bus shelter, Julian took a photograph of rain striking the streetlights. Evelyn accidentally entered the frame. She was not posing. She was laughing because a passing car had soaked his shoes. When he showed her the photograph, she became quiet. "Delete it." "You don't like it?" "I look careless." "You look happy." Apparently, nobody had ever told Evelyn Thorne that happiness looked good on her. She allowed him to keep the photograph. Their relationship grew slowly. Julian learned that Evelyn drank bitter coffee, but secretly loved strawberry candy. Evelyn learned that Julian wanted to travel the world, creating documentaries about forgotten communities. He showed her maps covered in red circles and promised to photograph the sunrise from every continent. She invested nothing in his dream. She simply listened, asked intelligent questions, and believed he could accomplish it. That mattered more to him than money. Evelyn was different with Julian. In public, she spoke carefully and rarely smiled. In private, she stole his hoodies, fell asleep during old movies, and once called him at 3 in the morning because she found a spider in her bathroom. They married by choice after graduation. There was no contract, no family arrangement, and no business benefit. In fact, Evelyn's father opposed the marriage because Julian had no wealth or political connections. Evelyn left the family estate, married him in a small garden, and spent their first year living in an apartment where the shower worked only when the kitchen sink was off. Julian had never been happier. Then Evelyn's father died unexpectedly. Foreign dynamics fell into a succession crisis. Evelyn inherited his voting shares and became the youngest chief executive in the company's history. She returned to the family world of boardrooms, hostile investors, and relatives who smiled only when someone else lost money. At first, she still came home early. She called Julian between meetings. She kept his university photograph inside her phone case. Then, little by little, she disappeared behind the Ice Queen. Work dinners replaced evenings together. Security briefings replaced weekend trips. She moved from their small apartment into a guarded penthouse and insisted Julian come with her. But once they arrived, they began sleeping in separate rooms because she claimed her late-night calls would disturb him. She stopped reaching for his hand in public. Then she stopped reaching for it in private. Julian tried to be patient. He knew grief and responsibility changed people. He did not become her maid or abandon his career, but he declined 2 long international assignments because Evelyn asked him to remain nearby during the succession fight. He became creative director at a documentary agency called Northline Media. He still photographed stories, but the red circles on his world map gathered dust. On their 4th anniversary, Julian reserved a private table at the rooftop restaurant where he had first proposed. He brought the university photograph in a silver frame and 2 plane tickets to Iceland. It was supposed to be a 10-day trip, short enough for Evelyn's schedule, long enough for them to remember how to be married. She never arrived. At 8, Julian called her directly. Evelyn answered on the 3rd ring. "I am in an emergency board session," she said. "A supplier leaked confidential files. I understand there is a crisis. Can you come after the meeting?" Silence. "I don't know when it will end." "Then tell me whether I should wait." Another silence, longer this time. "Go home, Julian. We will discuss it tomorrow. Today is our anniversary." "I know." "Do you?" Her voice became colder. "Not now." The call ended. Julian sat alone until the restaurant closed. He did not throw the photograph away. He did not toss the plane tickets into a river. He placed everything back in the gift bag and drove to Milo Grant's late-night cafe. Milo had been Julian's best friend since middle school. He was tall, thin, permanently overconfident, and known as Moose for reasons nobody remembered. When Julian explained the anniversary, Milo silently pushed an entire chocolate cake across the counter. "This situation requires emergency frosting." "I don't want cake." "Then your marriage is worse than I thought." Julian told him the truth he had avoided saying aloud. "I don't know if Evelyn loves me anymore." Milo's humor disappeared. "Have you asked her?" "Not directly." "Then ask directly. No games, no silent treatment. No pretending you have a mysterious female friend. My cousin tried that and now communicates with his ex-wife through a family court application." Julian looked at him. "That is surprisingly good advice." "I contain multitudes." "Your browser history contains how to escape a powerful woman without dying." Milo nearly dropped the cake knife. "How do you know that?" "I don't, but apparently Evelyn does." At the time, neither man understood how alarming that sentence was. Julian returned to the penthouse shortly after midnight. Evelyn was already home, seated at the dining table with her laptop open. She had changed into a gray sweater, the same one she used to steal from him in college, but her expression remained distant. "The board crisis is contained," she said. "I can reschedule dinner for Friday." Julian placed the unopened gift bag on the table. "I don't want another reservation. I want an honest answer." Evelyn closed the laptop. "Do you still want this marriage?" Her face became completely still. "Why are you asking?" "Because you avoid me, miss every important moment, and speak to me like I am an employee interrupting your schedule. I have spent 3 years explaining your silence for you. I am done guessing." "I am protecting the company." "That was not my question." Evelyn's fingers tightened around the edge of the table. "Of course I want our marriage." "Why?" She looked almost offended. "Because you are my husband." "That is a legal status, not a feeling." "What answer do you want?" "The true one." Evelyn opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Julian waited. 30 seconds passed. Then a minute. She could negotiate billion-dollar contracts without notes. She could dismiss directors with one sentence. But she could not tell her husband that she loved him. Julian's anger faded into something more painful. "I am moving to my studio for 30 days, he said. "During that time, we decide whether there is a marriage left to save." Evelyn stood so quickly that the chair struck the floor. "No! You cannot order me to stay. I can change. You have not even said what you feel. Feelings do not solve problems. Neither does pretending they do not exist." He went upstairs, packed one suitcase, and left through the front door. Evelyn did not call security. She did not block the elevator. She stood beside the overturned chair and watched him go. 6 hours later, she appeared in his studio, counting his words. After she returned the key, Julian sat across from her at the work table. "You said you would show me everything." Evelyn removed a tablet from her bag. On the screen were security reports, organized by date. Julian opened the first file. It contained photographs of a stranger following him outside Northline Media. The next showed threatening messages sent to Evelyn after their first wedding anniversary. A final image displayed the university photograph with a red circle drawn around Julian's face. Beneath it were 6 words. "Every queen has something she will trade." Julian looked up. "When did this begin?" 3 years ago, 2 weeks after I became chief executive." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you would have confronted them. You don't know that." At 19, you challenged 3 drunk men because they insulted a street musician. At 22, you entered a condemned building to recover a stranger's photographs. I know exactly what you would have done. So you pushed me away. I removed your name from company events, stopped displaying affection in public, and made the board believe our marriage was symbolic. The threats decreased. You also stopped displaying affection when nobody was watching. Evelyn looked down. Distance became easier than pretending distance. Julian absorbed the admission. "Who sent the threat?" "I believe my Uncle Conrad. I have never proved it. He controlled internal security when my father died and opposed my appointment." "You have had 3 years to investigate." "I did investigate." She swiped to another folder. The files were no longer about company threats. They were about Julian, his travel history, his coworkers, his medical appointments, photographs of Milo's cafe, background checks on every new client assigned to him. A report titled "Changes in Julian's Daily Mood" contained observations so detailed that even Julian could not remember half the days. His stomach tightened. This is surveillance. This is protection. No, protection is installing an alarm after asking me. This is paying strangers to record when I laugh. Your happiness indicates whether someone is influencing you. Listen to yourself. Evelyn reached across the table. Julian moved his hand away. The tiny rejection hit her like a physical blow. "Did you access Milo's browser history?" he asked. "My security team monitored searches connected to plans for leaving me." That sentence is worse than yes. "I never harmed him." That is an extremely low standard. Julian stood. "The 30 days begin now. During them, you do not track me, monitor my friends, contact my employer, or use company resources to influence my life. If you violate that, the next document will be a divorce petition." For the first time, fear appeared openly in Evelyn's eyes. "You would really leave me?" "If staying requires surrendering my privacy and freedom, yes." She became silent. Then she deleted the monitoring application from her tablet and placed the device on the table. 30 days, she said. "But I want conditions too." "Which conditions?" "One honest conversation every day. No disappearing to punish me. No using another woman to make me jealous. And if you are in danger, you tell me." "Agreed." "Also, Milo remains at least 200 feet from our legal documents." "That can be arranged." Evelyn stood but did not move toward the door. "You asked whether I still want this marriage," she said. Julian waited. Her voice dropped almost to a whisper. "Want is not a large enough word." Then she left. Julian should have felt relieved. Instead, he looked at the deleted application and realized that his cold wife had not ignored him for 3 years. She had been watching every moment. Day 1 of the separation began with breakfast. At 7 in the morning, Julian opened the studio door and found a paper bag hanging from the handle. Inside were a warm egg sandwich, black coffee with 1 spoon of sugar, and a note, written in Evelyn's precise handwriting. I am not tracking you. I know you arrive here without groceries whenever you are upset. Julian checked the hallway in both directions. Nobody was there. His phone rang. Evelyn spoke before he could answer. This is our honest conversation for today. Did you send breakfast? Yes. How did you know when I would wake up? You have used the same alarm since university. That is disturbingly observant. You used to call it romantic. She had a point, which annoyed him. Julian sat on the windowsill with the coffee. Fine, honest question. Why couldn't you tell me you loved me last night? Silence returned on the line. Evelyn? Because saying it makes the feeling visible. Visible things can be attacked. We were alone. I know. And you still felt unsafe? Yes. Her answer contained no excuse, only fact. Julian softened slightly. Then our first goal is learning that honesty with me is not the same as giving ammunition to your enemies. What is your first goal? Learning whether I can trust your attention without being controlled by it. That sounds less efficient. Relationships are not quarterly reports. That may be their central design flaw. He laughed before remembering he was angry. Evelyn heard it. Her breath caught faintly. You laughed, she said. Do not add it to a spreadsheet. I deleted the spreadsheet. There was actually a spreadsheet? Goodbye, Julian. She ended the call. At Northline Media, Julian's co-workers already knew he had moved into the studio. Milo had promised confidentiality, and then told exactly one person who told everyone else. The agency's lead producer, Lena Ortiz, entered Julian's office carrying a camera battery and an expression of professional curiosity. Is it true you left the penthouse? Temporarily. Is it also true Evelyn Thorne knows Moose's search history? Unfortunately. Lena closed the door. Then I need to confess something before I disappear. Last year, a security consultant offered me $20,000 to report whether you seemed attracted to anyone at work. Julian stared at her. What did you say? I said you were attracted to vintage lenses and free sandwiches. Then I reported the consultant to our lawyer. Why didn't you tell me? Our lawyer traced the payment to a shell company, returned it, and warned the consultant. I thought it was a jealous client. I only connected Evelyn after hearing about Milo. Julian called Evelyn immediately. She answered during a board meeting. Did you pay Lena to observe me? The room on her side became silent. No, Evelyn said. Think carefully. I asked security to identify inappropriate workplace attention. I did not authorize a payment. That is not meaningfully better. Is Lena beside you? Yes. Ask why she touched your shoulder at the Blackstone premiere 11 months ago. Lena stepped away from Julian as if proximity itself were dangerous. He had lint on his jacket, she called. Evelyn replied. The lint was not visible in any photograph. Julian pressed 2 fingers against his forehead. This is exactly what must stop. Lena is my colleague and friend. You do not investigate normal human contact. Evelyn's voice cooled. Normal is a broad category. Our agreement is not broad. Another silence. You are right, she said at last. I will close the workplace file and issue a written instruction prohibiting further monitoring. Thank you. But the lint explanation remains suspicious. Lena whispered. Your wife is terrifying. Evelyn heard her through the phone. Correct. Then she returned to her board meeting. That afternoon, Northline received an unexpected opportunity. The Global Heritage Foundation wanted a documentary team to photograph isolated coastal villages threatened by erosion. The assignment would last 6 weeks and cross 3 countries. It was exactly the kind of work Julian had dreamed about since university. His director offered him the lead position. 1 week earlier, Julian would have refused because Evelyn was under pressure at the company. Now he accepted before fear could turn into another sacrifice neither of them discussed. He told Evelyn during their evening conversation. 6 weeks? She asked. Yes, we leave next month. Which countries? Portugal, Senegal, and Iceland. Security conditions? The foundation has local teams. Names? You are not background checking them. I was going to ask for the emergency contacts. You were going to investigate the emergency contacts. Both can be true. Julian waited for her to demand he refuse. He expected cold silence, financial pressure, or a sudden acquisition of Northline Media. Evelyn surprised him. Congratulations, she said. That's all? No, I am experiencing 12 additional reactions, but only one is useful. Tell me another. I am afraid you will discover that the world feels larger without me in it. The honesty landed between them with unexpected force. Julian leaned back in his chair. I wanted you in that world. I bought 2 tickets for our anniversary. Where? Iceland. Evelyn became quiet. The envelope in the gift bag was not a divorce letter. You thought it was? I had someone scan it after you left. Of course you did. I did not open it. That is a very small moral victory. I will take it. On day 3, Evelyn invited Julian to dinner at a neutral restaurant. No private room. No security visible. No assistants. Milo insisted on helping Julian prepare. This is not a date, Julian said, as Milo held up 2 jackets. It is dinner with your beautiful, wealthy, emotionally unstable wife. That is a date with advanced weather conditions. Wear the blue one. Why are you wearing sunglasses indoors? Your wife knows my browsing history. I am protecting my identity. She has met you 20 times. The glasses create uncertainty. Julian chose the gray jacket. At the restaurant, Evelyn arrived 4 minutes early and looked disappointed that he was already there. Apparently, she had wanted to be first. She wore a simple cream blouse instead of her usual armor-like suit. The university photograph rested inside a clear case on the back of her phone. You kept it, Julian said. I have never been without it. They ordered dinner. For the first 10 minutes, both behaved like strangers attending a job interview. Julian finally placed his fork down. Tell me one thing you wanted to say during the past 3 years but didn't. Evelyn looked toward the window. Every morning, I stood outside your room after you fell asleep. That was not the romantic confession I expected. I wanted to enter. Sometimes I reached for the door, but if I began sleeping beside you again, I knew I would not be able to maintain distance in public. So you chose control over connection. Yes. Did the distance make me safer? The direct threats stopped, but our marriage nearly ended. Evelyn looked at him. I calculated the wrong risk. Julian appreciated that she did not ask him to praise the intention. Your turn, she said. Tell me something you never said. I resented you every time I declined an assignment. Pain crossed her face. Why did you decline them? Because you asked me to stay during the board fight. I asked you once, during the first month. After that, I assumed you still needed me nearby. You never asked. Neither did you. They sat with the uncomfortable truth. Evelyn had controlled too much, but Julian had also built silent sacrifices and expected her to understand their cost without being told. We are both terrible at marriage, he said. You are less terrible. That is not a useful standard. It is statistically accurate. Dinner improved after that. When dessert arrived, a waiter placed a strawberry tart in front of Evelyn. She glanced toward Julian's plate, where the chocolate cake looked better. In college, she would have stolen half without asking. Now she remained perfectly composed. Julian pushed the cake toward her. You can have some. I did not ask. Your eyes asked 14 times. You count? Only when something is wrong. Evelyn smiled. It was small, but it was the first real smile he had seen from her in months. Outside the restaurant, they paused beside separate cars. May I hug you? Evelyn asked. The question mattered. Julian opened his arms. She stepped into them and held him with a careful restraint that felt far more intimate than desperation would have. Good night, he said. Good night. She released him when he moved away. The next morning, Milo discovered a new security camera outside his cafe. He called Julian in panic. She has broken the agreement. The Ice Queen is watching me. I knew the sunglasses were not enough. Julian drove over and examined the camera. It belonged to the city traffic department. It is pointed at the intersection. That is what she wants us to think. Milo, Evelyn owns aerospace patents. If she wanted to watch you, the camera would not have a municipal sticker and a blinking green light. Milo considered this. So the lack of hidden cameras proves there are better hidden cameras. You need sleep. I need a new identity. Despite the false alarm, Julian checked Evelyn's compliance. Naomi Blake, her chief of staff, sent him a copy of the written order closing all personal monitoring. 7 contractors had been released. Workplace reports were deleted. Security would act only on specific, documented threats. Evelyn had obeyed. Then Julian received an anonymous envelope at Northline. Inside were photographs of him and Lena leaving the office together. The angles made their ordinary conversation look secretive. A typed note read, "Your wife knows what happens to men who embarrass her." Julian took the envelope directly to the police and called Evelyn. She arrived at Northline within 20 minutes with Naomi and a private attorney. She did not accuse Lena. She did not ask why Julian had walked beside her. She examined the photographs and recognized the date. "These were taken after my surveillance order ended," she said. "Someone wants you to believe I violated the agreement." Julian studied the image. Reflected in the office window was the red logo of a delivery van. "That company delivers only on Tuesdays," he said. "But this photograph claims it was taken yesterday, Thursday." Lena checked the original file visible in the print metadata. The image was captured Tuesday and altered. Evelyn looked at Julian. "You left the office at 6:12 on Tuesday. How do you know?" She stopped. "Evelyn, I was driving past Northline." "Why?" "Our dinner was the following day. I wanted to see whether you looked nervous." "That is almost surveillance." "I did not stop the car." Naomi quietly moved toward the door to avoid becoming part of the argument. Julian sighed. "We will discuss the drive-by later. For now, who benefits from making us distrust each other?" "Conrad," Evelyn said. "The annual shareholder vote is in 3 weeks. If my marriage becomes a public scandal, he can argue that personal instability makes me unfit to lead." The anonymous envelope was the first proof that the old threat had become active again. Julian asked to see every document connected to Conrad. "At the penthouse," Evelyn said. "Why there?" "Because the complete archive is not digital." That evening, Julian returned to the home he had left. The penthouse looked exactly the same except for one detail. His framed photographs, once displayed throughout the living room, were gone. "You removed them," he said. 3 years ago." "Where are they?" Evelyn led him past her study to a door Julian had always assumed contained climate controls. She pressed her thumb to a hidden lock. The door opened. The room beyond was large, windowless, and filled entirely with Julian. Every photograph she had removed from the penthouse covered the walls. The university image hung at the center. Shelves held his published magazines, old camera straps, ticket stubs, handwritten notes, and small objects he had forgotten years ago. One cabinet contained unopened gifts labeled for anniversaries, birthdays, and ordinary dates that had never happened. On a massive map, red lines connected every place Julian once said he wanted to photograph. Detailed itineraries filled folders beneath it. There were hundreds. Julian slowly turned toward her. "What is this?" "The part of our marriage I could not allow anyone to see." "You built a secret museum." "Archive." "That correction does not make it less frightening." Evelyn picked up an old train ticket from their first trip. "When I removed a photograph from the living room, I placed it here. When I canceled a dinner, I bought a gift and left it here. When you mentioned a country, I planned the trip here." "Why plan trips you never intended to take?" "I intended to take all of them after Conrad was removed." "When would that be? Another 3 years? 10? She had no answer. Julian opened a drawer and found recent photographs taken without his knowledge. His irritation returned. "These violate the agreement." "They were taken before it." "That makes them old violations." He began separating personal memories from surveillance material. Evelyn watched as he placed the unauthorized photographs and reports into an empty box. "What are you doing?" "You can keep our shared memories. You cannot keep records stolen from my private life." Her face tightened with visible panic. "They help me remember that you are safe." "Then call me. Ask me. Trust my answer." "And if you lie to protect me?" "Then we deal with the lie. You do not get permanent access to me because something might go wrong." Evelyn gripped the edge of the cabinet. For several seconds, Julian thought she would refuse. Then she carried the box to the study shredder herself. One file at a time, she destroyed the surveillance reports. The process clearly hurt. Julian did not pretend otherwise or reward her for correcting a violation. He simply stayed beside her while she chose the marriage she wanted over the illusion of certainty she had built. When the final page disappeared, Evelyn looked exhausted. "I feel as though I have removed every lock from a door during a storm," she said. "Then let me decide whether to come inside." "What if you don't?" "You survive the answer. And if I do, you know it is real." Evelyn looked at the separation agreement still folded in his coat pocket. Are you coming back tonight? No. The word hurt her, but she nodded. Will you come tomorrow? For our conversation. That is enough. Julian left the penthouse freely. Behind him, Evelyn stood in a room filled with every proof that she had loved him silently, and began learning that silent love was not enough. On the 5th day, Julian proposed couples counseling. Evelyn reacted as though he had suggested broadcasting their arguments to the stock exchange. A stranger would know private details about our marriage. A licensed professional would help us discuss those details, without turning every conversation into an interrogation. I do not interrogate you. Julian looked at her. Frequently, she amended. One session. If it is useless, we find another counselor. You assume the counselor will be incompetent? I assume the first person we meet may not suit us. Evelyn opened her calendar. I can offer 27 minutes on Thursday. The session lasts an hour. That is inefficient. Thursday at 6. She attended. Dr. Meera Patel had worked with politicians, surgeons, and couples who communicated mainly through legal counsel. Even she needed several seconds after Evelyn explained the secret archive. You preserved every object connected to your husband? Dr. Patel asked. Not every object. I discarded consumable items after photographing them. Julian covered his face. That clarification did not help, he said. Dr. Patel asked why Evelyn believed monitoring made people safe. For a long time, she said nothing. Then she told them about her childhood. Evelyn's mother left when she was 7. She did not say goodbye. One morning, the closets were empty, and the staff had removed every family photograph that included her. Her father explained that emotional people made unreliable decisions. When Evelyn cried, he sent her to another wing of the estate until she could return with a calm face. Conrad, her father's younger brother, became the only adult who seemed willing to comfort her. But his comfort always contained a lesson. If you show people what you love, they learn where to place the knife. If you need someone, they own part of you. If someone can leave, prepare before they do. Evelyn learned to hide every attachment. She hid candy, friendships, grief, and eventually Julian. Then why did you marry me publicly? Julian asked. Because before my father died, I believed I had escaped that world. And after? Conrad showed me the first photograph of you being followed. He said my father had died because he trusted the wrong people. He promised you would be next if I continued behaving like a lovesick student. Did he admit sending the threat? No. He presented himself as the person protecting us. For years, I could not determine whether he created the danger or merely understood it. Dr. Patel leaned forward. Your history explains the behavior. It does not make the behavior harmless. Evelyn met her eyes. I know. That answer changed the room. Julian had feared she would use childhood pain as a permanent excuse. Instead, she accepted that fear could explain a cage without making the cage acceptable. Dr. Patel gave them one exercise. Every day, each person had to state one feeling, one request, and one boundary without disguising any of them as logic. Evelyn wrote the formula into her phone. This is not a corporate process, Julian warned. Everything improves with documentation. Their first attempt happened in the parking garage. Evelyn stood beside her car and spoke as though presenting quarterly results. Feeling anxious. Request, return to the penthouse. Boundary, do not leave the country. The boundary is supposed to control your behavior, not mine. That significantly reduces its usefulness. Try again. She thought carefully. Feeling anxious. Request, call me when you arrive at the studio. Boundary, if I feel tempted to monitor you, I will call Naomi or Dr. Patel instead of acting. Good. My feeling is hopeful. My request is that you answer honestly when I ask about Conrad. My boundary is that I will not cancel the documentary assignment to manage your fear. Evelyn nodded. I dislike this exercise. That means it is probably working. By day 8, their daily conversations became less formal. Evelyn admitted she hated sleeping alone, even though she had created the separate bedrooms. Julian admitted he sometimes stayed late at the studio because being ignored at work felt better than being ignored at home. She confessed that she knew every meal he ordered, not because security reported it, but because he always chose the same dish when stressed. He confessed that he sometimes changed his order just to prove she could be wrong. Milo joined them for dinner on day 9 after Julian promised Evelyn would not discuss his browsing history. Milo arrived wearing a baseball cap, glasses, and a fake mustache. Evelyn looked at him for 2 seconds. "Good evening, Milo." He removed the disguise in defeat. Dinner was surprisingly normal, until the waitress smiled at Julian while refilling his water. Evelyn's gaze followed the woman across the room. The water glass in her hand developed a thin crack. Julian gently removed it before it broke. "Feeling?" he asked. "Homicidal." Milo choked on his food. "A different word?" Julian suggested. "Jealous." "Request. Sit closer to me." "Boundary. I will not investigate the waitress unless she returns with a weapon or a marriage proposal." Julian moved his chair closer. Milo raised one finger. "I am both terrified and impressed by this communication strategy." Evelyn looked at him. "Your turn. State of feeling." "Fear." "Request. Dessert." "Boundary. I will never search anything again." For the first time, all three laughed together. The improvement did not erase the danger outside their marriage. Conrad Thorne began openly questioning Evelyn's leadership. At board meetings, he described her as distracted. Anonymous financial accounts published rumors that Julian planned to divorce her and demand company shares. A gossip site released the altered photographs of Julian and Lena with a headline claiming a secret affair. The story spread before breakfast. Northline's lobby filled with reporters. Julian's clients demanded explanations. Online strangers analyzed Lena's hand position as though standing beside a coworker constituted a criminal confession. Evelyn called Julian from her office. "Say the word and the story disappears." "How?" "The media group that owns the website has debt with a Thorne bank." "No. We answer publicly with evidence. We do not use corporate pressure to erase criticism." "It is defamation, not criticism." "Then our lawyers file a case." Evelyn took a controlled breath. "Feeling furious?" "Request. Allow my legal team to protect you." "Boundary. I will not contact the bank." "Agreed." Julian and Lena recorded a short statement together. They showed the original production schedule, the altered timestamp, and the reflection proving the photograph had been manipulated. Julian did not pretend his marriage was perfect. "My wife and I are working through private problems," he told the camera. "Those problems do not include an affair. Somebody is manufacturing a scandal to influence a corporate vote, and we will address it through evidence and law." Evelyn watched the recording from her office. Naomi noticed that her hands were shaking. "He admitted the marriage has problems," Evelyn said. "It does. Millions of people heard him. They also heard him call you his wife and defend the truth." Evelyn replayed that sentence 4 times. Her legal team traced the altered photograph to a public relations contractor working for a Conrad-controlled investment fund. The contractor claimed an anonymous client provided the material, but payment records moved the investigation closer to Evelyn's uncle. Conrad responded by inviting Julian to lunch. Evelyn objected immediately. "He is manipulating you." "Probably. That is why the meeting will be in a public restaurant with my attorney nearby." "I should attend. Then he will perform for you. I want to hear what he says when he believes I can be separated from you." "You cannot be separated from me." Julian raised an eyebrow. Evelyn corrected herself. "Emotionally, if you choose." "Better." Conrad arrived at lunch wearing a warm smile and a blue tie. He looked less like a villain than a professor who remembered every student's birthday. "Julian," he said, "I am relieved you accepted. Evelyn has isolated herself since her father died. You may be the only person she still trusts." "Trust is an interesting word for what she was taught." Conrad's smile weakened slightly. "She told you about her childhood." "She did." "Then you understand her condition. Evelyn does not love normally. She collects people. She surrounds them with comfort until leaving becomes impossible." "Are you warning me or describing the lesson you taught her?" Conrad leaned back. "I tried to keep her alive." "By showing her photographs of me being followed?" For the first time, his expression changed. Only slightly, but Julian's camera-trained eye noticed. "I don't know what she told you." "She said you presented the first threat." "Because security brought it to me. Her father had enemies. I protected both of you." "Who was the security director?" "That was years ago." "People usually remember who delivers a threat against their niece's husband." Conrad folded his napkin. You are intelligent, Julian, so consider an intelligent exit. Evelyn's position is unstable. A divorce now could make you wealthy enough to travel forever. I can guarantee a generous settlement and prevent a public fight. You want me to leave before the shareholder vote. I want to prevent you from becoming collateral when she loses. That sounds like another threat disguised as protection. Conrad's smile disappeared. Be careful which woman you believe. Julian stood. I believe evidence. At the moment, your evidence is trying very hard to frighten me. He left the restaurant. Outside, he found Evelyn waiting across the street. She stood beside a flower shop, wearing dark glasses and holding a newspaper upside down. Julian crossed the road. You agreed not to attend. I did not attend. I remained outside. Were you listening? No. Evelyn. I purchased a directional microphone and then left it in the car. That is progress, in the most alarming form possible. She lowered the newspaper. What did he say? Julian told her about the settlement offer and Conrad's reaction to the security director question. He knows the source of the original threat, Julian said, but he will never admit it without pressure. Evelyn looked toward the restaurant. I can create pressure. Legal pressure. You remove all the efficient options. You married me voluntarily. I am reminded daily. They submitted Conrad's offer to the company ethics committee and the outside investigator reviewing the media manipulation. For the first time, Evelyn opened her private evidence against her uncle to independent authorities instead of trying to win alone. On day 12, Julian returned to the penthouse for a planned dinner. Evelyn had cooked. Technically, she had attempted to cook. The pasta had formed one solid object. The sauce contained enough salt to preserve a ship. Smoke drifted from the oven. Julian looked at the table. Did the kitchen staff resign? I gave them the evening off. Was that before or after the fire alarm? Before. The alarm is overly sensitive. He tasted the sauce and reached for water. Evelyn watched with growing concern. It is bad. It is ambitious. That means bad. Very. She dropped into a chair, defeated. I wanted to do one ordinary thing for you without delegating it. Julian opened the refrigerator. Then we do it together. They found eggs, vegetables, and rice. Julian taught her to prepare a simple stir-fry. Evelyn measured every ingredient as if building a satellite. He deliberately added a little more pepper without measuring. You disrupted the ratio, she said. Cooking survives uncertainty. A reckless philosophy. The second meal tasted good. They ate at the kitchen counter instead of the formal dining room. Evelyn stole food from his plate. Julian pretended not to notice until she reached for the last piece. That one is mine. Marriage creates shared property. You remembered marriage law when it became useful. I am chief executive for a reason. For an hour, they felt like the people from the broken university apartment. Then the penthouse lights went out. The emergency system should have activated instantly. It did not. Evelyn's expression changed. Stay here. No, we move together. She opened a locked kitchen drawer and removed a compact emergency flashlight. Julian used his phone light. They crossed toward the security panel. The front elevator opened in darkness. Footsteps entered the penthouse. Evelyn pulled Julian behind the marble island. He heard her whisper into the emergency line, but there was no response. A figure moved through the living room. Julian lifted his camera from the counter. The flash was powerful enough to disorient at close range. When the intruder reached the kitchen, Julian triggered it directly into the man's face. The intruder stumbled. Evelyn struck his wrist, sending a metal bar across the floor. Julian helped pin him until building security arrived through the stairwell. The man was not an assassin. He was a systems contractor with access to the penthouse's emergency network. In his bag were hidden cameras, audio devices, and a folder containing copies of the shredded surveillance reports. Someone had backed up Evelyn's secret archive before she destroyed it. The contractor refused to identify his client, but his access badge had been approved by Conrad's former security director. Evelyn stared at the copied files. Conrad knew everything I knew about you, she said. My surveillance did not protect you. It created a complete instruction manual for anyone who accessed it. The realization broke something important inside her. For years, she had believed more information always meant more control. Now, the same information had entered an enemy's hands. Julian closed the folder. Then we stopped trying to predict every possible danger.
We identified this one and face it together. You should cancel the documentary. No. Fear sharpened her voice. They know your route.
The route changes, the team receives security, and law enforcement investigates the leak. I will not allow Conrad to make my world smaller either. I cannot protect you across 3 countries. You are not supposed to control every risk in my life. You are supposed to be my partner while I live it. Evelyn looked toward the dark windows. Feeling terrified, she said. Request. Delay the trip until Conrad is removed. Boundary. I will not stop you by contacting your employer or the foundation. Julian took her hand. Feeling terrified too. Request. Help us build a reasonable safety plan. Boundary. I will not surrender the assignment because fear is louder than evidence. They remained divided on the decision, but for the first time, the disagreement did not divide them. The intruder's arrest produced the first name in Conrad's chain. Derek Sloan had directed Thorne family security when Evelyn's father died. He approved the contractor's access badge, handled the original threatening photograph, and retired with a suspiciously generous consulting agreement. Police visited his registered address. The house was empty. His accounts had been drained that morning. By afternoon, Derek contacted Julian through an encrypted email. I kept copies. Conrad will kill me if I testify. Your wife will bury me if I approach her. You are the only one who still believes in courts. Come alone. The message included a meeting location beneath an abandoned railway station. Milo read it over Julian's shoulder. Absolutely not. This message contains every phrase people say before entering a trap. I agree. You do? I am sending it to the detective and Evelyn. Milo looked almost disappointed that Julian had developed survival instincts. Evelyn called within seconds. You are not going. The police want to use the meeting to bring Derek into protection. They can send someone who looks like you. Nobody looks like me. Correct. That is one of the problems. Investigators created a controlled plan. Julian would enter the station wearing a transmitter, while officers covered every exit. Evelyn agreed to remain in the command vehicle after being reminded that chief executives did not outrank police captains. Milo volunteered to help. Everyone refused. He arrived anyway, in a railway maintenance vest he had purchased online. If things go wrong, I know first aid, he claimed. You fainted when you cut your thumb making coffee, Julian said. That was a strategic loss of consciousness. Police placed him inside the command vehicle where he could cause the least damage. Evelyn sat beside him, watching Julian's camera feed. If he is injured, she said, I will hold you personally responsible. Milo blinked. I am beginning to understand why my browser history developed that theme. Julian entered the abandoned station at 9 that night. Rain dripped through the damaged roof. Old advertisements peeled from the walls. Derek Sloan waited beside the closed ticket office. He looked exhausted and carried a black drive in one hand. Where is Evelyn? Derek asked. Somewhere she cannot frighten you. Inside the command vehicle, Evelyn frowned. Derek gave Julian the drive. Conrad ordered the surveillance. All of it. He staged the first threat to convince Evelyn that public affection endangered you. Every report she commissioned passed through him. He built her fear and sold himself as the cure. Why keep proof? Because people like Conrad eventually remove everyone who knows too much. I wanted insurance. Then testify. Against a Thorne, the company owns half the city. Evelyn opened the investigation herself. Derek laughed bitterly. She is still her father's daughter. When pressure rises, she will protect the name. Julian thought about the woman shredding her own files, attending counseling, and sitting outside a restaurant with an upside-down newspaper because she had left the microphone in the car. You do not know who she is becoming. A metallic sound echoed from the platform. Derek became pale. They found me. The station lights died. 3 masked figures entered through the western tunnel. Police ordered them to stop. One threw a smoke canister. The platform vanished beneath a gray cloud. Julian grabbed Derek and pulled him behind the ticket office. He activated the flash on his camera, illuminating the smoke in rapid bursts. Each flash revealed silhouettes for the officers' body cameras without exposing a continuous target. One attacker climbed over the barrier. Julian struck him with the metal tripod. Derek tried to run, slipped on the wet floor, and lost the drive. The attacker reached for it. Julian kicked the drive beneath an old vending machine and blocked the man's arm. The attacker was larger, but Julian used the tripod strap to trap his wrist until officers crossed the platform and made the arrest. 2 suspects escaped into the tunnel. 1 was caught at the service exit. The 3rd reached a waiting motorcycle. Inside the command vehicle, Evelyn watched the motorcycle approach Julian's side of the station. "He is moving toward the east stairs," she warned through the radio. The police channel answered with static. The smoke device had disrupted local signals. Evelyn opened the van door. Milo grabbed her sleeve, then immediately reconsidered touching her. The police said, "Stay here." "My husband is standing at the east exit." The police were very specific. Evelyn took 1 step out, stopped, and forced herself to look at the tactical map instead of running toward Julian. She saw a manual gate control beside Milo's seat. "Which switch closes the vehicle barrier?" "Red lever." "Why?" She pulled it. A steel arm dropped across the east access road just as the motorcycle accelerated from the tunnel. The rider swerved, struck a pile of wet cardboard, and slid across the pavement. Officers arrested him before he could stand. Evelyn remained inside the vehicle. When Julian emerged safely with Derek, she did not throw herself at him or order him home. She waited until police cleared the scene, then walked over. "Feeling furious," she said. "Request? Never fight an armed man with photography equipment again. Boundary. I will not say I warned you." Julian handed his bent tripod to Milo. "Feeling grateful. Request? Admit my equipment was effective. Boundary. I am buying a stronger tripod." Evelyn hugged him after asking. Derek entered witness protection. The drive contained payment authorizations, audio recordings, and internal messages proving Conrad created the original threats. It also showed that Evelyn's father had discovered irregular accounts shortly before his fatal heart attack. There was no evidence Conrad caused the death, but he had used the confusion afterward to seize security access, frighten Evelyn, and construct a 3-year campaign of isolation. The evidence should have ended Conrad's board challenge. Instead, he attacked first. The following morning, photographs of Evelyn's secret archive appeared online. Headlines called it the Obsession Room. Commentators displayed the wall of Julian's photographs, the labeled gifts, and the map of his movements. Anonymous former contractors described her surveillance program. Conrad held a press conference outside company headquarters. "I love my niece," he told reporters. "But these revelations show a pattern of instability, privacy violations, and dangerous fixation. Thorne dynamics cannot be controlled by one woman's obsession with her husband." The accusation was effective because much of it was true. Evelyn's lawyers prepared denials and technical distinctions. She rejected them. "If I hide behind legal language, I become him," she said. At a press conference that afternoon, she stood alone before hundreds of cameras. Julian watched from the side of the room. "The archive belongs to me," Evelyn began. "Some objects inside are private memories from my marriage. Others are reports I had no right to collect. I authorized surveillance of my husband and people around him because I believed fear justified control. It did not." Reporters shouted questions. Evelyn continued. "The monitoring program has ended. The records were destroyed. I have appointed an outside privacy officer with authority over executive security. Anyone affected may request an independent review and compensation. My marriage is not evidence that I am unfit to lead. My refusal to take responsibility would be." Conrad had expected denial, excuses, or silence. Evelyn's honesty stole all 3 weapons from him. Then Julian stepped to the microphone. "My wife and I are addressing the harm privately and with professional help," he said. "I do not excuse the surveillance. I also will not allow the man who created her fear to present himself as the person saving me from it. Evidence submitted to investigators shows that Conrad Thorne manufactured threats against my life and used them to manipulate Evelyn for years." The room erupted. For the first time, Evelyn reached for Julian's hand in public. He took it freely. Their honesty shifted public opinion, but the board vote remained uncertain. Some directors respected her accountability. Others feared scandal. Conrad controlled enough undecided shares to force an emergency leadership vote during the annual company gala. The vote would take place on the 30th and final day of Julian's separation. During the following week, Julian prepared for the documentary assignment, while Evelyn prepared to defend her company. They spoke every evening. Sometimes the conversation lasted 10 minutes. Sometimes they fell asleep with the call connected. Evelyn never asked him to cancel the trip again. She did ask whether he would carry a satellite emergency beacon. The Foundation already requires one, Julian said. May I have access only if you activate the emergency signal? Yes. May I review the security plan with Northline's insurer? With me present. Agreed. Every request became proof that fear could speak without taking control. On day 24, Julian discovered Evelyn waiting outside his studio holding a small box. What is it? A gift. Is there a tracking device inside? No. Did a security team select it? No. Did you purchase the company that manufactured it? Not yet. Inside was a restored version of his first professional camera, the one he had sold to pay rent during their final year at university. Julian touched the worn leather grip. How did you find this? I bought it from the collector who purchased it 8 years ago. How long have you had it? 2 years. It was in the archive with the missed gifts. Why give it now? Because it belongs with the person using it, not in a room where I preserve the idea of him. Julian looked at her. Feeling? He asked. Hopeful. Request. Take one photograph of me before you leave. Boundary. I will not ask to see any photograph you do not choose to share. He lifted the camera. Evelyn automatically arranged her face into the cold expression used for business portraits. No, Julian said. That is the chief executive. I want my wife. She is out of practice. I can wait. He lowered the camera and told her about Milo's railway disguise. Evelyn tried to remain composed, then laughed. Julian captured the exact moment. It resembled the photograph from the rainy bus stop. Older, more complicated, but honest. He printed 2 copies. Evelyn received one. The other went on the studio wall. On day 27, Conrad made his final move. Northline's equipment van was carrying Julian, Lena, and 2 assistants to a coastal safety workshop when the brakes failed on a steep road. The driver pressed the pedal. Nothing happened. The van accelerated toward an intersection. Julian saw construction barriers ahead and ordered everyone to secure themselves. The driver aimed toward a gravel emergency lane, but a parked truck blocked half the entrance. Julian grabbed the manual handbrake and applied it in controlled bursts while the driver downshifted. The van struck the gravel, spun once, and stopped inches from the concrete barrier. Nobody was seriously injured. A mechanic later found the brake line had been cut and partially sealed with wax. It would function for several miles before heat melted the seal. The equipment manifest and departure time had been accessed using credentials connected to Conrad's office. Evelyn arrived at the hospital, where Julian received treatment for a bruised shoulder. She entered the room, saw him sitting upright, and crossed the distance without speaking. Her hands moved over his face, neck, and arms, confirming every part remained intact. I am fine, he said. You almost died, but I didn't. Because of luck. Because the driver remained calm, everyone wore seatbelts, and we had an emergency lane. Conrad will try again. Then police arrest him with the evidence. Evelyn turned toward Naomi. Freeze every account he controls, remove his building access, send security to his home. Julian touched her wrist. Which parts are legally authorized? Naomi answered. The audit committee approved account restrictions 20 minutes ago. Building access can be suspended during a criminal investigation. Police already have a warrant for the home. Evelyn looked at Julian. All of them. He released her wrist. Then do it. Conrad was not at home. His phone remained inside. His passport was gone. Investigators believed he planned to flee after the gala, but the private airfields and train stations were placed under surveillance. The annual gala could have been canceled. Evelyn refused. The shareholder vote must happen, she said. If I postpone, Conrad's allies claim I am avoiding accountability. Then we attend together, Julian replied. You were nearly killed today, and tomorrow is the final day of our separation. I would like to be present when we decide what comes after. Evelyn's expression softened. Are you planning to come home? Ask me tomorrow. She nodded, though waiting clearly caused physical pain. That night, Julian slept at the studio for the final time. At 3 a.m, he woke and looked toward the door. For years, Evelyn had stood silently outside his bedroom while he slept. Now she was nowhere nearby because she had promised not to follow him. Strangely, the absence did not feel like abandonment.
It felt like trust. The Thorne Dynamics Gala occupied the top 3 floors of the Meridian Hotel. By 7 in the evening, the ballroom was filled with shareholders, executives, journalists, and enough private security to protect a small country. A glass stage had been built beneath a wall of city lights. The leadership vote would occur after Evelyn's annual address. Julian arrived through the main entrance instead of the private garage. He wore a dark blue suit and carried the restored university camera over one shoulder. Reporters surrounded him immediately. "Mr. Mercer, are you divorcing Evelyn Thorne? Did your wife's surveillance make you fear for your safety? Will you testify against her?"
Julian stopped before the ballroom doors. "My wife and I will not turn our marriage into public entertainment," he said. "She made serious mistakes and took public responsibility for them. Conrad Thorne manufactured threats, manipulated company security, and is now wanted for questioning after an attempt on my life. Ask why his supporters still believe he should control this company." Then Julian entered. Evelyn waited near the stage in a black evening gown. Her hair was pinned above the university photograph displayed inside a small pendant. When she saw Julian, the conversations around her seemed to disappear. She walked toward him, then stopped one step away. "May I?" she asked. Julian offered his hand. Evelyn took it. The simple gesture became the most photographed moment of the night. "You came," she said. "I said I would. You also said I should ask today." After the vote, she accepted the delay with heroic restraint. Milo appeared in a borrowed tuxedo carrying 2 plates of appetizers. "I have evaluated the security," he announced. "There are cameras at every entrance, guards beside every elevator, and no public wireless network. I still do not feel safe because Evelyn knows I once searched whether penguins have knees." "They do," Evelyn said. Milo slowly lowered his plate. "How did you know what I searched?" "Because everyone has searched that." Julian nodded. "She is right." Milo looked between them suspiciously, then returned to the buffet. At 8, Evelyn stepped onto the glass stage. She did not begin with profits or growth. "4 weeks ago, I believed leadership meant controlling every variable," she said. "I applied that belief to this company and to people I loved. Control created silence, and silence gave corruption room to grow." She announced new oversight rules, privacy protections, and an independent security committee. Executive family members would no longer control investigations involving themselves. Whistleblowers would report directly to outside counsel. Several directors looked uncomfortable. Employees applauded. Evelyn continued, "I cannot ask you to trust me because I am a thorn. I can only show that I am willing to build a company where no name stands above accountability, including mine." The voting system opened. Before the first ballot appeared, every screen in the ballroom turned red. Conrad's face replaced the company logo. He sat in a dark room somewhere inside the hotel. "A moving performance," he said. "Unfortunately, accountability should begin with resignation." Security sealed the exits. Technicians tried to recover the screens, but Conrad had accessed the hotel's internal broadcast network. He displayed private reports from Evelyn's archive, including photographs of directors, employees, and Julian's co-workers. "This is your reformer," Conrad said. "A woman who records every smile, every friendship, and every possible disloyalty. Do you really believe she destroyed the system? Or did she simply hide it better?" Evelyn stood beneath the screens without looking away. "The materials are real," she said into her microphone. "They are also part of the evidence submitted against Conrad. He accessed the archive because the security system answered to him." Conrad smiled. "You blame me for your obsession? No, I blame you for your crimes. I take responsibility for mine. That is the difference between us." The screens went black. An alarm sounded near the service elevators. Naomi received a security message and became pale. Milo is missing. His access badge entered the 39th floor broadcast level. Julian's phone vibrated. The message contained a live photograph of Milo tied to a chair inside a maintenance room. Conrad stood behind him, holding a pistol. "Bring Derek's drive to broadcast control B. Alone. If Evelyn follows, your friend falls 39 floors." Julian showed the message to Evelyn and the police captain. The old Evelyn would have ordered every guard into the room and taken the decision from him. The old Julian might have hidden the message and walked into danger alone. Neither did. "We use a decoy drive," Julian said.
He wants the evidence and a public escape route. The captain examined the building plan. Broadcast Control B connected to a freight elevator and an exterior maintenance platform. Conrad could descend to the parking structure while the ballroom remained locked down. "We need him away from the exterior door," the captain said. Mr. Mercer enters with the decoy. Officers approach through the ventilation service hall. Evelyn looked at Julian. Fear lived openly in her eyes, but it no longer disguised itself as authority. "I do not want you to go." "I know." Feeling terrified. Request: follow the police plan exactly.
Boundary. I will remain in the command room unless the captain asks for my access. Julian squeezed her hand. Feeling terrified. Request: trust me. Boundary. If the plan changes, I will not improvise alone. Milo sent a second message from his own phone. Actually, Conrad sent it while holding Milo's thumb against the screen. Hurry! Also, he has terrible cologne. Julian almost laughed. Even kidnapped, Milo remained committed to useful reporting. Police attached a transmitter beneath Julian's jacket and gave him a decoy drive. He rode the service elevator to the 39th floor. Broadcast Control B stood at the end of a narrow hall. Julian entered with both hands visible. Conrad had tied Milo near the exterior platform door. A cable connected the chair to an electric window cleaning cradle suspended outside the building. If Conrad released the brake, the cradle would descend, with Milo attached to it. "You brought the drive," Conrad said. Julian held it up. "Release him first." "You are in no position to negotiate. Then why am I here? You could have stolen a blank drive anywhere. You need me to confirm the evidence is complete." Conrad considered this. "Connect it to the console." Julian approached slowly. "Why create the first threat against me?" he asked. Evelyn had left the family. Her marriage made her sentimental. After her father died, I needed her dependent on the company and on me. Fear returned her to both. You spent 3 years destroying her marriage to make her easier to control? I made her useful. She should thank me. Inside the command room, police recorded every word. Evelyn heard her uncle describe her pain as a management strategy. Her face remained calm, but tears gathered in her eyes. Julian inserted the decoy drive. The console displayed a false decryption bar prepared by investigators. 90 seconds, Julian said. When it finishes, you will record a statement saying Evelyn ordered the surveillance and attempted to kill you after you asked for divorce. Nobody will believe that. They will believe a frightened husband standing beside a bruised friend. Conrad planned to manufacture one final image and let public imagination complete the lie. Milo shifted in the chair. For accuracy, I bruise very easily. Conrad struck the back of the chair with his pistol. Be quiet. Milo looked at Julian. One of his hands had slipped partly free from the plastic tie. He had been cutting it against the sharp edge of his metal cufflink. The progress bar reached 70%. Police officers entered the ventilation corridor, but a welded panel blocked their path. Conrad had anticipated the service route. The captain asked Evelyn whether another entrance existed. She studied the old hotel plans. Broadcast Control B shared a cable conduit with the ballroom lighting system. The conduit was too small for a person, but it connected to the electrical controls beside Conrad. I can shut down the console and lock the exterior cradle, she said. But the emergency command requires executive biometric authorization from the ballroom stage. Do it, the captain ordered. Evelyn ran back into the ballroom. Shareholders moved aside as she reached the stage and placed her palm against the control panel. In Broadcast Control B, the decryption bar reached 95%. Conrad smiled. Now, Julian, tell the world what your wife really is. The console died. Emergency locks engaged with a heavy metallic sound. The exterior cradle brake sealed. The room lights shifted to red. Conrad raised the pistol. What did you do? I trusted my wife. Milo ripped his hand free and threw the appetizer plate he had somehow kept beneath the chair. A piece of smoked salmon struck Conrad directly in the face. Conrad turned in shock. Julian moved. He knocked the gun aside with the restored camera, drove Conrad against the console, and trapped his wrist. Milo kicked the pistol under the equipment rack. Police breached the main door seconds later. Conrad fought until 3 officers forced him to the floor. As they placed him in handcuffs, he looked toward the camera above the console. Evelyn will destroy you eventually, he told Julian. People like her do not change. They only learn better disguises.
Julian retrieved his damaged camera. Then you should have allowed her to prove that herself, instead of spending 3 years making sure she stayed afraid. Conrad was arrested for conspiracy, stalking, attempted assault, blackmail, corporate fraud, and the sabotage of Northline's van. Derek's evidence connected every payment. The contractors identified their orders. The case no longer depended on family accusations. Milo received medical attention for a bruised wrist and emotional damage caused by terrible cologne.
I saved the operation, he insisted while paramedics checked him. You threw fish at an armed man, Julian said. History will simplify the details. Evelyn reached them after police cleared the floor. She stopped in front of Julian, saw the cracked lens on his first camera, and looked ready to mourn it. The camera can be repaired, he said. Can you? I am not damaged. She touched his bruised shoulder carefully. The separation ends tonight, she said. I will not ask the question here. Good. But I am counting the minutes. Of course you are. The shareholder vote resumed at 10:30. Conrad's proxy votes were suspended pending the criminal investigation, but Evelyn still needed a majority of independent shares. She returned to the stage without changing her torn dress or hiding the tears that had ruined part of her makeup. You have seen the worst evidence about me, she told the room. You have also seen what happens when one family controls truth, security, and leadership at the same time. If you elect me, my authority will become more limited than any chief executive before me. That is not weakness. It is how this company stops depending on whether one powerful person is good. The ballots opened. Employees voted first through their trust, then institutional shareholders, then private investors. Evelyn received 58%. She remained chief executive. Her first signed order created the independent oversight office she had promised. Her second approved 6 weeks of personal leave beginning during the final week of Julian's documentary assignment. At midnight, Julian returned to the penthouse. Evelyn waited in the living room with 2 documents on the table. One was their original 30-day separation agreement. The other was a signed divorce settlement, giving Julian his studio, personal assets, and complete independence from Thorne finances.
She had waived every claim against his work.
What is this?
He asked. Proof that I understand the door is open. If you want to leave, you will not need my permission, my money, or another negotiation. She placed a pen beside the settlement. I love you, Evelyn said. The words shook, but she did not look away. I love you in ways that became controlling and harmful. I am learning better ways. I cannot promise fear will disappear. I can promise I will not turn fear into your prison again. Julian read the settlement carefully. Are you asking me to stay? Yes. Request. Come home. Boundary. If you choose to leave, I will not follow, threaten, purchase, monitor, or professionally inconvenience you. That last phrase is suspiciously specific. Dr. Patel helped. Julian placed the pen down. I am not returning to the marriage we had. Evelyn's face became pale. I am returning to build a different one. The studio remains mine. I take the assignments I choose. We share a bedroom because both of us want to, not because one of us is afraid. We continue counseling. We speak before resentment becomes sacrifice. Hope slowly returned to her eyes. And the archive? Shared memories stay. Secret reports never return. Agreed. Julian tore neither document. He placed the divorce settlement in a safe. Why keep it? Evelyn asked. Because love is more valuable when both people know they have a real choice. She considered that, then nodded. May I kiss you? Yes. Their kiss was not desperate or possessive. It was a promise made by 2 people who finally understood that remaining together was a decision, not a sentence. Julian moved home the following morning. Milo arrived to help with 1 suitcase and behaved as though organizing an international relocation. We survived Operation Ice Queen, he announced. There was no operation, Julian said. That is why it succeeded. Evelyn offered Milo coffee. He accepted, cautiously.
Is my browsing history forgiven?
No, but it is private.
That is the healthiest, terrifying thing anyone has ever said to me.
1 month later, Julian left for the documentary assignment. Evelyn went to the airport with him. She did not place a tracker in his coat. Julian checked twice, which she considered insulting but understandable. He carried the agreed emergency beacon.
She had access only if he activated it. "Call when you land," she said. "I will." And after the first location. Once each evening. Twice. Once with photographs. Agreed. She held him tightly, then released him before boarding began. During 5 weeks apart, Evelyn never appeared unexpectedly in another country. She never contacted his team for private updates. She sent messages, waited for replies, and survived when a storm delayed communication for 11 hours. Dr. Patel later called those 11 hours a major therapeutic achievement.
At the final location in Iceland, Julian stood on a black beach photographing sunrise when a familiar voice spoke behind him. "Your horizon is tilted." He turned. Evelyn stood beside 2 suitcases wearing a red coat. No guards were visible. "You took leave." "The board survived without me for 5 weeks. I am trying not to take that personally." "Did you investigate everyone on the flight?" "Only the pilot. Aviation safety is different." Julian laughed and pulled her into his arms. They spent her final week traveling between villages, interviewing families, and watching northern lights from a rented cabin. Evelyn answered work messages for 1 hour each morning, then turned her phone off. Julian finally photographed the Icelandic sunrise he had circled years earlier. This time, Evelyn stood openly in the frame. 1 year later, they returned to the rooftop restaurant on their anniversary. Evelyn arrived 20 minutes early. "You did not need to wait," Julian said. "I wasted 4 anniversaries. I am building a surplus." She gave him a small box. Inside was no company contract, code of conduct, tracking device, or expensive watch. There was a tiny pair of socks and an ultrasound photograph. Julian looked from the picture to her. "Are you?" 9 weeks. For once, the famously composed Evelyn Thorne looked completely nervous. "Feeling terrified and happy. Request? Hold my hand. Boundary: you are not allowed to faint before dessert." Julian moved around the table and wrapped her in his arms. "Feeling happier than I know how to explain. Request: let me attend every appointment. Boundary: you may not create a surveillance archive for the baby." Evelyn hesitated. Evelyn: "A normal photo album. Shared access." Agreed. They laughed together while the city lights reflected across the glass. Evelyn was still intense. She still remembered every word Julian said during arguments, still noticed anyone who stood too close, and still preferred security plans with unnecessary levels of detail. But she asked instead of ordered. She admitted jealousy instead of punishing strangers. She protected without possessing, and loved without hiding. Julian did not fix her by surrendering his freedom. He helped change their marriage by demanding honesty, maintaining his own life, and recognizing that understanding someone's wounds did not require accepting the harm those wounds caused. Their marriage survived because both people changed. The cold wife learned that love could be visible without becoming weakness, and the husband who nearly left learned that beneath her silence was not emptiness, but a heart so frightened of loss that it had mistaken a locked room for safety. The door was open now. They remained because every day they chose to walk back through it together. If you enjoyed Julian and Evelyn's complete story, remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments, would you survive being married to an ice queen with a secret Yandere side? Or would you run with Milo? Thank you for watching until the end.